This speech was written and held by Emma Watson as she launched a new UN campaign called HeForShe at the UN headquarters in New York. She was at this time a newly assigned Women Goodwill Ambassador for the UN and a former star of Harry Potter, so this situation was new both for her and for the audience. But despite her nervousness, Watson was still able to make very good use of the situation. For example, when she uses it as a refutation for why she is here. She says,
"You might be thinking, who is this Harry Potter girl? And what is she doing speaking at the UN? And it's a really good question. I've been asking myself the same thing. All I know is that I care about this problem and I want to make it better."
In this quote, she also mentions her passion about gender equality, which essentially was why she was there in the first place. And her passion really shines throughout the whole speech. She takes a starting point in herself and in her life, and thereby she establishes her ethos with the audience. She paints her own picture to show the audience that her being here is not just something that she was paid for, but something she has a burning passion for. But passion isn't enough, and Emma Watson knows that as well. So her speech is also filled with a lot of very strong arguments. One of her main points is that gender inequality is not just a problem for women, but for men as well. She argues that women just as often, or that men just as often as women are being imprisoned by gender stereotypes. And she states,
"If men don't have to be aggressive in order to be accepted, women won't feel compelled to be submissive. If men don't have to control, women won't have to be controlled."
She believes that for gender inequality to ever have a chance to end, men have to take part of the fight. But they also need to know that they're allowed to take part of the fight, that we actually want them to take a part. In addition to this argument, she also quotes Edmund Burke.
Statesman Edmund Burke said, "All that is needed for the forces of evil to triumph is for good men and women to do nothing."
She ends her speech with what is probably, or what I think is the strongest argument in the speech.
"If not me, who? If not now, when?"
Linguistically, the speech is also very powerful. The circumstances of which the speech was held clearly demanded a certain formal tone, but Emma Watson she still managed to keep it on the same level as the general man and woman she was talking to. She also uses a couple of rhetorical devices, which only captivates the audience further. The first rhetorical device she uses is an anaphora. It is in the beginning of the speech, where she explains her interest in gender equality and how it started for her.
"I started questioning gender-based assumptions a long time ago. When I was 8, I was confused being called bossy because I wanted to direct the plays that we would put on for our parents. But the boys were not. When at 14, I started to be sexualized by certain elements of the media. When at 15, my girlfriends started dropping out of their beloved sports teams because they didn't want to appear muscly. When at 18, my male friends were unable to express their feelings. I decided that I was a feminist, and this seemed uncomplicated to me.
In this part, she states 4 episodes in her childhood that she thinks led her to feminism. 4 episodes she all starts with when at, and this repetition of when at makes it almost hypnotizing both to watch and read. Another rhetorical device is the rhetorical question,
why has the word become such an uncomfortable one?
Here she refers to the word feminism. It's not meant for anybody to answer, but to emphasize the importance of the problem. Personally, I think that this is an amazing speech. It gives me literally goosebumps every time I read or listen to it. I think that Emma Watson has an amazing way of speaking to a very serious and important crowd about a very serious and important subject, and still making everybody laugh and smile with her. The first time I watched this speech, I felt a ton of emotions. I was proud of a young girl like Emma Watson being elected to be Women Goodwill Ambassador for the UN, but I was also horrified that the world can call itself that gender inequality still is such a huge problem, and I was ashamed that not one country in the world can call itself gender equal. But it's often the awful feelings we feel in situations like these that makes us wanting to make a difference.